Welcome to another Wednesday meditation. My name is Keith. Valerie, welcome. First time. Glad you're here. My name is Keith, and I am your meditation teacher for today and all Wednesdays. And on this channel, Meditation Breaks, we look at all different things that we can do with meditation. There's a lot of different things that meditation can do to enrich our lives, and we look at all of it, right? Because everyone's here for a different reason, and so we kind of spread it around a little bit. So the cadence for today's class is we're going to start by just talking about meditation in general, right? Meditation 101 or whatever you want to call it. Very baseline, what is meditation? How does it work? How do we do it? All this great stuff. And then we're going to do a very short meditation, short, so don't worry. It's like no more than 5 minutes, breathing meditation, just to kind of learn how to put some of these things into practice. And then we're going to talk about a topic. And today's topic is a really good segue from this kind of meditation 101, and that is mindfulness. Now, that is a word that I'm sure you have heard numerous times before, which is great. But we're going to kind of clarify what is mindfulness? What does that mean? Why is it something that you might want to practice? Right? And what can we do with it? Right? And how do we practice mindfulness? Cool. Okay. So if you're new, feel free to ask me questions. The best way, you can ask me questions at any time. You do not need to wait for me to stop or something like that. And the best way to ask questions is through the chat. If provided that I have my eyes open and we're not actively meditating, I will stop what I'm doing and answer your question. You can always also email me. I'll put my email in the chat later in case something comes up after we're finished. All right, cool. All right, so meditation, what is it? You guys tell me, you teach the class. So meditation is often linked with relaxation for very good reason. It is a great way to relax. That's probably why the majority of you took an interest to meditation, at least at first, to learn how to de-stress. Right? So the method in which meditation relaxes us is something that isn't always very clear. And so I want to spend some time and just kind of talk about how actually meditation is going about relaxing us, and this, by virtue of that, doing a lot of other really important things. So meditation is really a technique. It is a technique of training your mind. Training your mind in what? That's up to you. But if we look at relaxation, right, sometimes we can kind of think that meditation equals relaxation, right? But it's not really what's happening. Meditation is a method for you to start to get in touch with the relaxed you. You have a relaxed version of yourself. It's in there somewhere. We want to work on bringing it out more, but it's in there. It's always there. All right? It's not something you have to go and get. All right? It's not out there somewhere and you need all these different things to come to fruition in order for you to be relaxed. You have the ability to do it. It's just that we're so used to just kind of letting our mind do whatever it wants that when we ask it to relax, sometimes it doesn't obey our command, right? So meditation is a method of training your mind to do what you want, right? And in this case, we're talking about training it to be more relaxed. So the word familiarity is something that I think is almost analogous to meditation, being familiar with something. So if you think about something you're super familiar with, maybe walking, right? You don't really need to think about how to walk anymore. Right? It's pretty easy for you to understand the mechanics of walking because you've been practicing it for quite some time, right? And you could say that it comes pretty easy to you. We can do a lot of things while we're walking. We can talk on the phone. We can, I don't know, write. I'm making random things up, but the point is you can do a lot of things while you're walking because walking is super familiar to you. And so it comes quite naturally, right? So this was not always the case. You might have to think back to when you were a young child, but I'm sure there are some embarrassing videos of you learning how to walk and you're stumbling all over the place, right? It wasn't always as easy. So in between that, walking being difficult and walking coming naturally to you, what happened? Practice, familiarization. You just did it a lot, and so now your mind's like, yeah, I know what to do. And then that activity starts to flow to you more naturally. The same is true for mental mind states, emotions, being relaxed, right? So the more familiar you are with the relaxed version of you, the easier it's going to be to kind of bring it up when you need it. Right? It's just going to kind of flow more naturally, the same way in which walking is now pretty natural, or riding a bike if you do that, or tying your shoe, all these things that just we can do, right? And that's where meditation comes into play. It is a training technique, and the things you want to train your mind in are up to you. Right? But we always kind of start with the de-stressing and relaxation thing. Cool. CJ, is it normal to move while you meditate? I move in a counterclockwise or serpentine movement. Cool. I rock a little bit. Maybe you'll see if you watch the video. Your eyes are supposed to be closed when we're doing this, so you wouldn't notice. But if you watch the replay, I kind of rock back and forth a little bit sometimes. I think it doesn't really matter, and we'll kind of get into this, as long as it's not something that you're really fixated on, right? If you're like, hey, I'm moving a lot, right? And then our whole goal is to focus on breathing, well, then now our mind's in kind of two different spots, right? But yeah, I actually move a little bit too. Cool. So how do we do this? How are we going to go about learning how to kind of get in touch with this relaxed self, learn how to use meditation to do that? We're going to use a technique called single-pointed concentration, which means we're focusing on one thing and one thing only. Right? So now we're super familiar with not that. We're super familiar with multitasking. We do it all day long, even when we aren't really trying to. It seems like our mind is just kind of bouncing from place to place, right? So when we tell our mind, hey, mind, it's time to focus on one thing, sometimes our mind's like, yeah, I don't think so. Not because it's incapable, but it's because it's not used to doing this, right? It's not used to doing this, so we have to train it a little bit. So we're going to do something called single-pointed concentration, and the thing we are going to be single-pointedly concentrating on is our breath. And we are going to concentrate so exclusively on breathing that all the other kind of things that are normally bouncing around in our mind, there's not going to be any room for them, right? They're going to start to fade into the background a little bit, right? If you've ever been in the zone, maybe you're working on something at work, lose track of time, forget to eat lunch, all those noises that normally would annoy you, it's kind of like they're gone. They're still there, but it's like they faded a little bit, right? There's no room in your mind for them because you're so focused on one thing. So we're going to start to learn how to do this intentionally. And as a result, all of the worries, anxieties, the stress that is going on in our mind, it's going to start to fade into the background a little bit. And we're going to relax. We're going to start to see that we're able to do this, which is a really important part, that you are capable of bringing out this kind of relaxed self. Cool? That's enough talking for me for this portion. I pretty much talked the entire time, though. Okay. Let's do it. So the first thing to note is it doesn't matter what your seating arrangement is. I know sometimes people are like, oh, you got to sit with this with your legs crossed or whatever. It doesn't matter. You should be comfortable. I'm in a chair. You too can be in a chair. You could sit on the floor if you prefer. Want to lay down? That's also great. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you're relatively comfortable. That way you're not kind of letting your mind get annoyed about being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. And you can go ahead and close your eyes. And I'm going to guide us through about a 5-minute breathing meditation. Okay. Whenever we start a meditation, first things first, check in. Ask yourself, how are you feeling right now, in this very moment? Are you happy, sad, tired, energetic? Doesn't matter. We're not doing anything about it. We're just noticing. This is called mindfulness and is something we are going to talk a lot about today. But for now, just check in. Notice how you're feeling in this very moment. And having done that, you can now turn your full attention to your breath. You're making a choice. You're choosing to focus single-pointedly on breathing in and out. Gently, naturally. You do not need to take big, deep breaths. You do not need to forcefully exhale. Just breathe as you normally would. In and out. And allow yourself to relax a little bit into your chair or cushion. Single-pointedly focused on each moment of each breath. Following the air as it enters your nose. And following the air as it exits. At some point, you may notice that your attention drifts a bit. Maybe you're starting to think about something you have to do later after this class, or something that happened earlier in the day. Whenever you notice that this has happened, we can just gently say, not right now, to those thoughts. We'll get to them later. And then guide your focus back to breathing. In and out. Gently and naturally. Keep breathing in and out. And allow yourself to relax a little bit more into your chair or cushion. Allow yourself to enjoy sitting here in this moment. Just you and your breath. Keep bringing your attention back to breathing whenever you notice that it has drifted. this process of choosing to focus single-pointedly on your breath, noticing when your attention drifts, and being able to bring your attention back to breathing, that is meditation. You are meditating right now. You are training your mind to relax, to be calm, to be peaceful, to focus on what you want to focus on. And right now, you're focusing on breathing in and out, gently and naturally. So just for the next few seconds, continue to enjoy breathing, sitting here. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. How'd that go? So that was a pretty kind of standard breathing meditation. And you may have noticed it was not that long. Sometimes we kind of think that meditation requires us to do this for hours on end. It is not the case. In fact, I don't really recommend doing that. You get burnt out. So the goal with meditation is to do it consistently, right? So maybe you only have a minute in the morning. Cool. If you can do that consistently, you're going to see benefits. You're going to see progress, right? Meditating for 2 hours once a month, not really going to see that much progress, right? So part of starting your own routine is thinking about, well, what actually is going to work for me in my life? Because everyone's life is a little bit different, right? Cool. And if you found that to be difficult, don't get discouraged, because what's going on here is that your mind, it doesn't know what you're doing. Your mind is like, I don't know why you want to do this. We never do this. In fact, we do the opposite of this all the time. So it just takes a little practice to kind of get your mind, body, everything about you used to doing this, and also kind of looking forward to it a little bit. And then it's going to start to really flow more naturally. And you're going to be able to settle in very quickly and get to that kind of relaxed point more readily. Cool? Any questions on breathing meditation or meditation in general or anything like that before we go on? The things we're talking about beyond today, they're not a huge departure from that. So if anything comes up, feel free to just ask during that time as well. Doesn't matter. Your question doesn't have to be pertaining to what I'm talking about currently, I guess is my point. Okay. So today's discussion is about mindfulness. And I don't think it's that big of a stretch to say that this is a buzzword. We hear it everywhere, right? Mindful everything. Everything mindful this, mindful that, mindful that. So what does it mean? We hear all of it and like it sounds good. Just the word mindful. It sounds great. I like to do that. I like to be that. But what does it mean? Right. And this is, I think sometimes it gets a little lost in translation, right? When it starts to become a buzzword type thing. Lori, how do we get in tune with ourselves? For instance, when we tend to think about others close to us instead of ourselves, self-care. So this is like step 2 of meditation, right? So meditation is really a 2-step process. The first is you got to relax, because if your mind is agitated, it is very difficult for you to use it to its capacity, right? So step 1 is to do kind of what we've been doing. We're learning how to relax a little bit, right, to settle in. And then when our mind is relaxed and a little more clear, well, then we can start to think about things with a level of clarity that we hadn't had previously. Right? So getting in tune with yourself, whatever that means to you, is kind of taking place in both of those steps, right? So with breathing meditation, we're getting in tune with the fact that really we're a relaxed person, which is not something that we think about ourselves often, right? So we're getting in touch with that. We're getting really familiar with it. It's going to start to kind of flow to us more naturally. And then from there, we can think about all sorts of things, right? Maybe we have anger issues, right? And we can kind of think about why? What is it that is making me angry? Why do I get angry, right? What if the roles were reversed, right? Like, maybe you have road rage or something like that. Have you ever cut anybody off? Sure, right? You wouldn't want somebody to respond that way to you. So these are the things that in the moment, very hard to think about. But when we're relaxed and have a little bit more clarity, we can come to some really interesting conclusions about ourselves, how we approach life, and all that wonderful stuff that each of us is trying to kind of attain. Right? Great question. Okay, that's called contemplation. If the kind of like thinking portion. Oh, I'm sorry, Ivy. Migraines are tough, so if you need to go take care of that, I totally understand. I know. I've had some bad ones in my day as well. Thanks for the question, Lori. Okay, so mindfulness. What is it? Now, the word that pops up whenever we kind of hear mindfulness, awareness. And it's a good word. It actually describes it pretty well. But there's an aspect of that I like to add on, which I think is really important. And it's awareness for a purpose. All right. So it's not like we're just walking around like there's a tree, there's a cat, there's a sidewalk, unless that's the thing you want to do, right? If you're like mind, we're going to look for objects and just say them, right? Then like you're kind of doing a little bit of a mindful activity, but it's intentionally aware of your own thoughts moment to moment for a purpose, right? And the purpose is so we can deal with the things that our mind is starting to think about in a more skillful manner, right? Be more available to help ourselves, thus being more available to help others, right? It's awareness, but to do something with that awareness, right? Lori, to me, awareness is growth, like purpose. Yeah, so awareness and intention go very, very hand in hand here. Intention is really important, right? I like to describe intention as kind of like a compass, right? It didn't tell you exactly where to go, but it's like, hey, remember, this is what you're doing, right? This is what you want to be doing. And in order for you to notice that you're not doing that, you need mindfulness. So they work really. They're a good team, right? Good duo, dynamic duo, right? Janelle, mindful eating. You do not eat too much. Yeah. So these are I do this all the time. Sometimes I'm eating and I'm like watching TV or while I'm eating. Next thing I know, I'm eating a ton of stuff, and then, because I'm not really aware that I'm doing that, right? So the word awareness is very well suited for mindfulness, right? But we want to develop an awareness with a purpose, a purposeful intention of being aware, right? And we'll talk a little bit about what that means and how we do it and why, right? So that sounds cool. Why? Why would we want to do this, right? And there's a lot of reasons. I'm going to focus on three that I think are pretty important and I think translate well to the real world, right? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to use meditation to benefit us in our daily lives, right? So the first major benefit of mindfulness. And this is important for anything you want to do with meditation, whether it's work on anger or loneliness or anxiety or whatever, is developing mindfulness as a early detection system, right? So you probably got a fire alarm in your house, right? Or a smoke detector. I hope. I think it's mandatory. So what does that thing do? Let's say there's smoke in your house, right? Beep, beep, beep. Very high-pitched sound, right? The alarm is not stopping the fire. But what it is doing is saying, hey, something's going on here. What do you want to do about it? Right? So mindfulness is kind of like this alarm. It's kind of warning us, hey, your mind's going off in the direction of anger. Is that what you want to be doing? Is that where you want your mind to be going? Hey, your mind is starting to feel a little anxious. Is that what you want to be doing right now? Maybe it is. I don't know. But the warning system gives you an opportunity to decide. If you never had a smoke alarm, you wouldn't know if there was a fire in the house or smoke was kind of pouring through the house unless you were able to see it, right? So this is a huge, huge thing to develop for ourselves because it allows us to manage our kind of the negative mind states, and look, the positive ones too. Notice when good things are happening. But a lot of times we're focusing on trying to help with anxiety and things like that. And we catch them too late, right? We catch them when we're super anxious, we're in panic mode. But if we were able to catch them earlier, right? It's like a little flame, just like pour a little bucket of water on it, no big deal. If it spreads, it becomes more difficult to manage, right? Lori, so mindfulness is healthy thinking and positivity. Mindfulness, it can be that, but mindfulness is making a choice to kind of check in with yourself, to take an interest in what your mind is doing moment to moment so that you can like have happy thinking, healthy, positive thinking, right? So if you don't ever notice that you're having negative thinking until you're kind of enraged or something like that, it's more difficult to manage, right? So this is your little like smoke alarm or a tornado siren or something like that. Yeah, like taking an inventory. That's a good word, Lori. You're taking an inventory of what you're doing. And at first, sometimes we got to force it. We're going to be like, how am I feeling? Which is why we do that in the meditation. But as you get more familiar with this, you're going to get used to kind of checking in and noticing what your mind's up to. And then you can choose what direction to go from there, right? So this is a huge aspect of mindfulness. It is one of, if not the most important part. And become aware of our triggers. Oh, so that's great, right? So CJ, great. Like, so this is a really insightful thing, right? So we all have these things, right? Triggers that make us angry or sad or this and that, right? And sometimes we don't really know them, right? We just get anxious or we get mad, right? And if we don't ever kind of take a moment to think about the path from being okay to not okay, we might not understand why of what's going on here, right? Absolutely. Really, really great. Thank you. Lily, hello. Mindfulness helps me listen and find the pauses between action of life and then become comfortable in those moments instead of rushing to avoid. Beautiful. Write that down. Beautifully well said. And that's kind of the third thing I'm going to talk about. So I will revisit it, but yes. Amazing. So early detection. Good, right? And the second thing I'm going to kind of talk about is mindfulness kind of allowing you to choose where you want your mind to be, right? So right now, I don't know about you, but for me, it seems like my mind is driving the car, right? Mine's like, hey, worry about work. I'm like, oh, yeah, really would like to just relax, but okay, here I go. I'll worry about work. It seems like we're not really in control, right? And so mindfulness is the first step in starting to take back control of where you want your mind to be. And this plays into what Lily was saying a little bit, right? So where is our mind normally is an interesting thing to think about, right? How often do you think you're thinking about the past or the future? It's almost 100% of the time. Very brief moments where we're like super plugged into what we're doing, and then our mind's like, boop, and it might be quick, then it comes back, then it's boop, right? But it's constantly shooting into past, future. Anxiety is all future, right? I got into meditation for anxiety, and anxiety is all future based. What if this never goes away? What if I say something embarrassing, right? It's all future. If your mind is in the future or the past, where is it not? Here, in the present, right? So this whole kind of be present thing and mindfulness go very hand in hand, because mindfulness is giving us the opportunity to choose where we want our mind to be. Now, having your mind in the future is not bad, right? In fact, it is quite important at times. If you were going on a trip and you never thought about what you needed to pack, you might get to your trip and then be like, uh-oh, I don't have proper attire or something like that. So having your mind be in the future or the past is not bad, right? It can be extremely important and wildly beneficial, but only if you want to be doing that at that moment, right? So we're taking back onus of where our mind is. So early detection, right? Hey, I'm starting to worry about work a little bit right now. Cool. That's amazing that you're able to notice that. Now we can kind of choose. Do I want to be worrying about work? Is that the most important thing I should be worrying about right now? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe you have a project coming up in an hour and you're, haven't done the thing you need to do, and you got to really kind of think about, focus on what you want to do. Should I say this or that? That might be the case, right? But sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes our mind is going there, but really, like Lily was saying, there's cool, amazing things happening right now that we're missing because of it. So it's up to you. Where do you want your mind to be? Choice. Meditation is huge for cultivating choice of your thoughts. Cool? And then the third thing is finding little joys, right? Subtle joys. So let's say we're walking down the street, right? We walk down streets a lot, and what do we usually think about when we're walking down the street? Oh man, I'm got a long week ahead of me, and that event's coming up this weekend, and I don't know if I really want to go. Right? Yeah, these are all the things we think about. Right? I'll tell you what we're not thinking about is walking down the street. And because our mind is not tripping, that's important. If you're having trouble tripping, that's really important that you should be focusing on that. So if we are, sometimes our body is doing one thing, but our mind's doing another, right? Our body is present. Our body is walking, but our mind is in the future thinking about work, or in the past thinking about something somebody said that upset us, right? And so they're kind of out of sync. Our body and our mind are out of sync. And what we want to do is we want to sync them up, right? And by doing that, by making a kind of intentional commitment to be in the present moment, body and mind, we start to notice some subtle little joys about the activity that we're participating in. So walking down the street, there's a lot of amazing things that are happening, right? Birds chirping, the sound of the leaves blowing in the breeze, right? The temperature of the wind, right? All these very subtle but kind of interesting things that are happening with something as basic as walking down the street, right? They are always there. It's not like the birds are gone, and then if we'd, think about them, they appear. The birds are there, but if we don't choose to focus on them, we won't notice them, right? So mindfulness and, meditation really are really wonderful at training you to be able to detect when your mind is going to a direction, choosing if you want it to go into that direction, right? And then if you don't, if you want it to focus on what you're doing right now, starting to find some subtle joys in that activity. And the cool thing is you start to enjoy these little things more than you ever thought you could, right? Sounds great. Nobody's like, I don't want to do that. But how do we do it, right? How do we actually practice this? So there's really three things. I added one. When we're meditating, doing breathing meditation, we're actually practicing mindfulness. We're training our mind in mindfulness. Why? What are you doing? You're like, I'm going to focus on breathing. And then what happens when you notice your mind is wandering? Boo, there's the smoke detector alarm. Here's my mindfulness alarm. Hey, my mind's drifting off into the past or the future. Is that what I want to be doing? No, I don't want to be doing that right now. I'll get to that later. I want to be focusing on my breath. That was my intention. Bring it back, right? So it's built in to meditation so that we're kind of doing them together. But I think that's important to kind of put out there, because sometimes we think they're very separate and they're not really. We can combo them in clever ways, but we're not always meditating. In fact, the vast majority of our day is spent not meditating. I'm a meditation teacher, and the vast majority of my day is spent not meditating, right? So what do we do when we're not meditating? Two things that I'll suggest. One, set a mindfulness alarm on your phone, that awesome device you have, the pinnacle of technology. Set an alarm on it. Or if you don't like alarms, maybe a sticky note in a place that you frequent. And what this alarm or sticky note does is when the alarm goes off or you see the sticky note, this is your check-in time. Whatever you're doing, just take a quick moment and be like, how am I feeling right now? What's my mind up to? Don't do anything about it. We're just practicing noticing it, right? This is what we did in the beginning of the meditation. We're training ourselves to catch things early, right? And then eventually we want to do something about it, but we don't want to get overwhelmed. So step one, got to catch it. Janelle, you got 3 alarms? I love that. I love those times. Those are great times. So set an alarm, or like I said, a sticky note or whatever if you don't like beeping. And this is your check-in time. And at first, it's going to feel super forced. Right? You're going to be like, this is dumb. Why am I doing this? It's going to feel like, oh, I don't want to check in, right? But eventually, this is going to become normalized. And you're going to become familiar with doing this. And so you're naturally going to start checking in with yourself. And that's when you're going to start to notice all these things that are, you're going to start to notice these kind of negative mind states earlier in the process, which is great. It lets you deal with them in a more skillful way. And then if you're feeling ambitious, you can do what I'll call like activity-based mindfulness training, where you are taking something you're already doing in your day, right? Do not pick if you do not like walk every day or something, do not pick walking as your activity. I don't want to add anything to your plate. Got enough. But we're going to pick a task, or it can be super mundane, like brushing your teeth is a great one, right? You don't think about brushing your teeth and you're brushing your teeth. You think about other things. But what if now brushing your teeth was your mindfulness time? For these 2 minutes that I'm going to brush my teeth in the 4 quadrants of my mouth, that's what the electric toothbrush, I think, tells me to do. I am going to focus only on how brushing my teeth feels, how the bristles feel against my teeth, or how the sound is, right? One of these aspects, these subtle aspects, subtle joys of brushing your teeth, are going to focus on them. We're going to turn an activity we're already doing into a mindfulness practice, right? Great. We're not even adding anything to our day. It's fantastic. Cool. Okay. So that's where I want to stop for mindfulness, but I'd like to do a short meditation that kind of incorporates what we were talking about. And it's going to be very similar to what we did before. In fact, it's going to be almost identical. But now we are going to view our breathing meditation not only as a means to relax, but a means to practice these kind of three core principles of mindfulness: early detection, choosing where our mind is, and finding subtle joys. And I'm going to guide you through that, so you don't got to worry too much about that. You just go ahead and relax, and I'll take it from here. Okay. Make sure you're comfy again, or if you weren't comfy before, good time for a change. And you can go ahead and close your eyes when you're ready. And I'm going to guide us through yet another 5-minute breathing meditation. Okay. Let's once again just start by checking in. How are you feeling now? In this exact moment. Don't need to compare it to before. Before is gone. All we're worried about is now, this moment. How are you feeling? Just notice. We now know why we're doing this. We're practicing mindfulness, an active awareness of your own thoughts moment to moment for the purpose of being able to respond to those thoughts skillfully. And having checked in, you can now once again make a choice. Going to choose, set an intention. Your intention is to focus single-pointedly on your breath. Breathing in and out gently and naturally. Following the air as it enters your nose, and following that air as it exits. Fully present with your breath. Here, now, breathing in and out, gently, naturally. And every once in a while, you may notice your attention going in a different direction. Thinking about something that happened earlier, something coming up later, the past or the future. When you notice this, that is your mindfulness alarm at work. It is telling you, hey, your mind is drifting a bit. Do you want it to drift? Or do you want to go back to breathing? So whenever you notice your attention drifting, we can just say not right now to those thoughts and then guide your focus back to breathing in and out. We are choosing where we want our mind to be. And right now, we are choosing to focus on breathing in and out. Gently, naturally. as you start to become really plugged in to your breath, single pointedly focused on breathing, you may start to notice some interesting subtleties about breathing that have always been there, but maybe you haven't noticed before this moment. Maybe you're noticing how the air feels cool, temperature-wise, every time you breathe in. How interesting. And every time you breathe out, that air feels a bit warmer, doesn't it? How interesting. Or maybe you're noticing how your body is an active participant in your breath. Your shoulders rising and falling. Your chest expanding and contracting. Every aspect of you, body and mind, breathing together. Being single-pointedly focused on the activity at hand, the present moment, reveals subtle joys about that activity. Right now, you are learning to enjoy breathing. How wonderful is that? That you are able to find actual joy in something as simple and accessible as breathing in and out, gently and naturally. If you can learn to enjoy your breath, think about all the other things you can learn to find joy in. So just for the next couple of moments, just sit here in this moment. Enjoy being here. You have nothing else to do, nowhere else to be, just right here, breathing and enjoying each moment of it. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Good job. So, again, pretty similar to what we did before, but we're approaching it with a new level of appreciation, right? So before we're like, cool, I'm going to relax. Now we're like, cool, I'm going to relax. And also I'm learning how to detect when my mind is doing something early on. And then that gives me an opportunity to choose where, if I want my mind to be there or not. And then also I'm starting to find some subtle joys in breathing. That's kind of cool. I didn't think I'd be able to do that, right? So mindfulness and meditation go hand in hand. And when you're practicing one, you're kind of practicing the other. So doing actual traditional breathing meditation is really great because you're doing both. You know, it's a really good way of doing both, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But hopefully this kind of was a good intro to what mindfulness is. And I think it's really cool that mindfulness is everywhere. And hopefully now you have a different kind of definition of what that means. And you can start to think about, oh, well, okay, what is mindful eating? You know? Oh, what is mindful writing or whatever? Well, there's different, names that are there. And I think you might find that the definition always kind of comes back to this. It's like a moment-to-moment awareness for a purpose. A moment-to-moment awareness for a purpose. Cool? Cool. Okay. So if you had a good time today, great. I had a great time, so I'm glad you did too. Come back. I do this every Wednesday. As you can see, we got a whole crew of awesome people here. And every Wednesday I talk about something different. I don't know what it's going to be. But it'll have to do with meditation. I can guarantee that. So come on back. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, I encourage you to do so. We just celebrated a 1,000 subscriber milestone. So I still got a big smile on my face from that. Thanks for everyone who's been a part of that. And if you were here for the first time, I encourage you to get on board. You get some notifications whenever I'm going live. All my old videos are up there. So if you're like, I would like to learn about anxiety, cool. Go check it out. You could see me with progressively shorter hair and less facial hair. And then finally, if you are kind of really into this and you would like to do a more like private study, I do one-on-one classes. They are very casual. I do them over Zoom. If you can't tell, I'm very laid back. We're going to joke around. We're going to have a good time, but we're going to learn about meditation for something that is particular to your life. Because maybe, you got a mindfulness routine, right? Maybe you really want to focus on anxiety or something like that. We can focus on that. So if that's interesting to you, email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. It is keith@meditationbreaks.com. I'm focusing on typing. I think that's good. Email me and we'll find a time that works for you. Or email me if you have any other questions. Just email me, right? It can even be a blank. The subject and body can be blank. Just email me. It's fine. Cool. Gail, thank you. Jessica, Miley, thank you. Eileen. Joan, my mother. Hello. I'm going to call you after this. CJ, thank you. I'm glad you had a really good first experience. Thank you for the amazing questions, by the way. Rosa, Lori, Mimi, another first timer. Thanks so much. Glad you guys had a good experience, and good luck doing some meditation on your own. Perhaps keep it short, keep it simple. All right. Don't try to do it for an hour. And you love my hair, Bob? Thanks. And I will talk to you guys next week.